you. This is Ellen and Pat Mongan, and here today we have a podcast on marriage. It's going to be a series. This is Deacon and Dear. Hi, Deacon.
Hi, dear.
Good to have you on the show today. We like to get on a lot, and we like to do different topics that are pertinent to what the season of the year is or about parenting or marriage. We decided to do a whole series on marriage because we find that marriage is one of the areas that is under attack nowadays. And I think mainly it's because people don't understand what the Catholic Church believes what marriage is and teaches on how to be married. So, Deacon Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, it's obvious that, and as we talked about earlier, is the fact that it's one of the institutions of the church that the devil's going after, and there's been prophetic words that would be one of the final attacks of Satan and the demons in terms of marriage and family, because and not just the church, but sociologists and whatnot have said is if as the family goes, so does culture. That if you don't have good, solid families, then you're going to have all kinds of problems in the culture in terms of crime. And we've actually seen that played out in our culture today in terms of those families that are not intact, where single parents, because of divorce, are raising children, and how those children are much, much more likely to be involved in criminal activity or drugs and things that are not good for them, and it's not good for the culture or family or society in general. And we see that that's been going on and increasing in so many ways. And so marriage is critical to have a good, healthy culture in society.
I say strong marriage, strong family, strong marriage, strong nation. And it's
Right.
really true, because we are raising these children, the next generation. It's the most important job you do is to parent children that you've had a healthy marriage. So we want the nation to be strong. We want our marriage to be strong. We want our kids to have an example to follow. If you have been a bad example to your children, you may see them when they get married doing the same bad example. They don't do what you say, they do what you do, and they're going to copy like wet sponges. So, Pat, what do you think the Catholic Church defines marriage as?
Well, let's say a couple things
Okay.
right away.
Okay.
Marriage is, between a man and a woman. That's it. You
Okay.
can't call a relationship between two men, two women, a marriage. It can never be a marriage as far as God's concerned or the church's. And people want to say, oh, that's mean. No, because God created marriage. God defined marriage. And it's defined in the very beginning in terms of our very nature. Adam and Eve, male and female, he made them in the image and likeness of God.
And they thought it was a good idea at the time, Adam and Eve. They thought it was a good idea. So we do too. But go on.
Yeah, well, so the idea is the fullness of who God is and who he represents, and for us in our limited knowledge and ability to understand is the fact that God's fullness includes men and women. Not one is lesser or better than the other, but the fullness, because they have different characteristics and qualities, involve male and female. And then, of course, in that God, Adam and Eve were completely in union with each other and with God until the fall. And that's what marriage is supposed to be in terms of representing that oneness with God. The oneness between the man and the wife is meant to represent the oneness that God has with humanity and his love and care for us human beings. And then he says, go and be fruitful and multiply and have children.
And
so
we did.
an essential part of marriage is having children if you're able. Sure, there can be problems, medical and whatever, but the idea that children are not an essential and important part of marriage is just not God's way of defining marriage.
And the good news about the Catholic Church is we have the sacraments, and they say a sacrament is an outward sign instituted by Christ to give grace. And Pat has something to say about, on most sacraments, it's, do you remember, I lead him into something that he doesn't remember what I was going to say. But a sacrament, you're the couple is the
Sacrament.
outward sign, right? And so when you see couples in church and they're holding hands or smiling, you know that they have that oneness, and you go for the Eucharist to provide the grace for the sacrament. I really believe in the grace. It's an invisible thing, but we know, Pat and I know that we have the invisible oneness grace, because wherever we go, and we don't really try for this, we could be arguing. The other day, we were just in a post office line, and some lady just blurted out, I could just tell you have a lot of fun together, right? She saw that love between us, and we were mailing our weekly packages to give, to bless people, and we were not, it's not really our favorite chore, it's a long line, but God in His goodness had the light of Christ shine through us to that lady, and I was blessed by that. So, outward sign, instituted by Christ to give grace, and the outward sign is the love between the couple.
Right, and so the first, sacrament is baptism, which normally requires a clergy person, but in situations of where imminent death might occur, any person who can baptize, if they baptize in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, with water, using water poured over the head of the person at least. So, but normally speaking, the clergy are involved in that. First Communion, obviously, the clergy needs to be involved in terms of consecrating the host. So, confession requires the clergy to be involved. Anointing of the sick and healing requires the clergy. In marriage, the unique thing, as Ellen said, is the couple are the outward sign and are the object, and therefore the couple are really marrying each other. And in the Catholic Church, Latin Rite, the priest is not marrying them, they are marrying each other. The priest or clergy, a deacon, are the witnesses to that. And so that's one of the unique things and aspects. And as Ellen says, is all the sacraments are meant to give grace, and so you can have a sacramental marriage. And one of the things that people always question is, why can't somebody divorce if things didn't work out? Well, the church, because Jesus said, let no man put asunder what God has put together.
Some guy asked what asunder meant. I was on my Facebook, someone said, what is asunder? He didn't know, so I thought we might share that. It's
take apart.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Break apart, so yeah, no, that's the church. Catholic Church takes that literally, and has taken that literally for 2,000 years, in terms of divorce is not acceptable, and the church does not divorce people. Annulment is not divorce. An annulment, which the church recognizes, is the fact that some situations the marriage is not a sacramental marriage, and not a marriage in the eyes of God or the church. And that can be tough when people have been married for a long period of time, and saying that, it's not real, you're not really married. There's civil marriage, but then there's the sacramental marriage that comes through the church. And so the church is what annulment means, and there's a book about all the things that are possible in terms, like if somebody was drunk when they got married. Well, you can't say that person knowingly and with full intent said, yes, I want to marry you, if they're intoxicated or on drugs, or so. And there can be other things, mental impairment, things that people bring to a marriage from their past life that they didn't disclose to their spouse.
Wow.
So there are things that can basically are saying, you were never really married. And that's what an annulment is about, is the church. And the church spends a great deal of time and energy and effort to discern whether or not somebody is, in a relationship that is not a valid marriage. Church does not take that lightly, and has a tribunal that reviews all the data and does interviews, and so they don't take it lightly in
Just like your covenant,
Correct,
with your,
that's
with
exactly,
God, your covenant
exactly.
with each other is a holy matter, and you take it to heart before you decide. I was thinking that they get drunk before the wedding, but they've been so committed. I don't think someone get drunk. There's really no time for a wedding. There's so much to do. But I'm saying the thing is to take it seriously now. We have so many couples we did engage weekend that spent so much time getting ready for the wedding and not preparing for the marriage. They had to have the right dress and they shopped for the right veil and then the songs they wanted. And their emphasis was really on the fact of we're going to the church and we're going to get married. And they forgot about the part about putting Christ in the center of their marriage. Like there was this story I want to tell, and I think it fits in here, where one of the men we knew, a young man marrying a young gal he had known probably all his life, but fell in love and they were going to get married. And there is a lot to do for a wedding, mostly for the bride more than the groom. But they do get dressed and have all their time to take pictures. But I'm saying that the groom took the time before the marriage to write and pray at the Adoration Chapel, because I saw his name there at the Adoration Chapel. And I thought it was the best thing ever that he would take that time to put his marriage centered on Christ. So the Adoration Chapel, if you don't know what that is a place where people go where the Eucharist is exposed and you pray and you have peace because Jesus is there. He's always with us, but he's especially with us in the host, the Eucharist, and it's an outward sign as well. It's to our Christ to give grace, and I just felt like that graced their marriage, and they have a zillion kids, and they're a great couple. So, by the way, that's just a tip. If you're thinking of getting married, then that would be something you want to do is put your relationship in the light with Christ, and be sure you're joined together in Christ when you get married. And then if you're married a long time, Pat and I take the time each year to kneel down before, we just kneel down and pray for our marriage each year. And we pray for it often. Every day we pray in a manner. But we pray in a specific way to cleanse our soul from any hurts or anything we've done. We got it from the book of Tobit, where Sarah had many people that actually didn't quite make it as her forever spouse. So it's a really good thing to do. And now Pat's going to take it away on what does Catholic Church say in the Catechism? What is marriage?
Well, yeah. So I have
he has
sitting in front of me.
That's the theologian, and I'm really
because I taught RCIA classes and talked about the matrimony because it's an important topic, obviously, in terms of what the church actually teaches. And I've got like 6 pages of
he's going to read them right now.
Quotes from the Catechism and from Scripture, because Scripture says quite a bit, and there's quite a bit that's relevant to that. But what the church says is that holy orders and matrimony are directed towards the salvation of others. If they contribute as well to personal salvation, it's through service to others that they do so. And that's one of the key aspects of a sacramental marriage is one of key roles for me is to help Ellen get to heaven and for her to help me get to heaven. And one of the things that for those of you who might be listening is that the whole idea of divorce or the fact you weren't married and have kids is the church recognizes that this is difficult. The church and Jesus says it, and popes have said it, is that marriage and sticking with it requires grace, and you have to work at it, and dealing with the complications of divorce, like somebody could be very, very faithful and the other spouse leaves and divorces them, and they didn't want that at all, and they suffer and because of that, they can't really, in the eyes of the church, can't really marry somebody else unless they get an annulment and have had their marriage declared null and void, that they were never really married.
But it also is, marriage is also a joy-filled grace. If you center on Christ each day, it's not on feelings. See, we know it's like we know that marriage is not a feeling. When you first fall in love, it's all those butterflies, and you get so excited. And then one day, your spouse falls off the pedestal, and they crash. And all of a sudden, your eyes keen in on every little fault they ever had in their life. Well, now they had those faults when you first met them, you almost like the angels blind you to it, and now you see everything. Because God doesn't want us to go by feelings even in our relationship with Him. Our relationship with Him is built on faith. And your marriage is built on a choice every day to choose to love the mate if they have bad breath in the morning or their curls are in their hair. Or even if they laugh at your jokes and they weren't even funny, because it really is important in marriage to not go by feelings. I want that brought in because someone's listening out there, they go like, check, I have this one. I can say my wife was drunk before the marriage. How do you know? She was getting dressed and doing all the pictures. She had no time. Go on.
Well, it's like you said earlier. It's a covenant.
It's a covenant.
It's not a contract, because a contract can be broken. Covenant, you can't really break it. God didn't break His covenant with the people of Israel. He doesn't break His covenant with those of us who were baptized. He is always loving us, always seeking us to be one with Him. We're the ones who break the contract. We break the contract, the covenant with God, and therefore, and because we're sinners, we may break the covenant with each other, and that's a serious sin as far as God is concerned and as far as the church says.
But don't you think, wait, I interrupt here because I'm the interrupter. Don't you think that God gives the grace every day to love the person? And if you don't have the grace, you go to confession. I have a really simplistic faith. I'll tell you why. I'm at the was 7. I was with Him almost all my life. There are times I swayed or was ignorant, but I knew that I couldn't do this life without Him. So every day I start out with, I can do nothing apart from You, Lord, and I want You to be the center of my day. And if you do that, and then all of a sudden the grace feels gone, you can go to confession every day if you want. You know what I'm saying? I'm not suggesting it for you because our time is so limited with our 8 children and 16 grandkids, but I suggest you don't have that grace to love Jesus, go to confession. You don't have the grace to love your spouse, go to confession. Why? Confession is an outward sign issued by Christ to give grace. And when you're out of grace, it's like sometimes you're just tired. Don't you think? Like when I had a lot of children, sure. I was tired. I think sure. I left the Lord. I'm not praising Him. I was exhausted, honey. And sometimes you have your eyes on something other than the prize of Jesus or your spouse, and you get that something's in the way, like you're going, this person looks better or acts better, they're patting my back or something like that, and you fall asleep. And then sometimes you do that, and then other times it is a simplistic thing for me. I just think I know that most times I meet people and they've been divorced, and I knew them like when they were married, and they go, my spouse is crazy. I said, well, I know your spouse. That's how he always has been. He's always been that person. Your eyes are blinded. And when God begins to say, I want you to love this person on Monday morning and at Sunday Mass, you have to just repent and say, Lord, I'm not loving with all my heart. Well, we know that. We can't. And that's when you figure out that you cannot love Christ with all your heart, you cannot love your spouse, you can't love your children, and you begin to beg the Lord to give you the love to love Him. It's like a circumcision of heart. That's my big thing prayer lately. Give me a circumcision of heart, Lord, because He says, I want not a heart of stone, but a heart of
What does that
flesh.
mean?
Well, if you think about a circumcision, which I've never personally had one, I don't even know what it would be like to have one at an adult age, but it's painful.
More fleshly, more open, more sensitive to people.
Right, and I think it's important because I think it's a holy prayer at this season of our life where the world's so crazy and the people beyond, and then the TV shooting. The nuns would say to us, honey, avoid the near occasion of sin.
Right.
Do not let temptation in. Okay, you watch a TV show and it's always about adultery, murder. There's so many things. I usually just close my eyes and sit there and delete my emails that I don't want to read in the first place. And that's what I do. But some of y'all actually watch it and go like, then it makes you think that every day is like that movie. And it isn't. So I just interjected about a few minutes at a time, and so I'm going to let Pat go back to our topic. But marriage is very important.
Let me just read
you did almost fall asleep at one point.
One of the key statements in the Catechism is the matrimonial covenant, by which a man and a woman establish between themselves a partnership of the whole of life, is by its nature ordered toward the good of the spouses.
I like that.
And the procreation and education of offspring.
Okay.
This covenant between baptized persons has been raised by Christ the Lord to the dignity of a sacrament. And back to the whole idea of annulment is in terms of consent is consent must be an act of the will of each, free of coercion or grave external fear. So no such thing as a shotgun wedding. No human power can substitute.
I don't know what that means either.
No human power can substitute
funny.
for this consent. If
I'm
this
a
freedom
pessimist,
is
maybe.
lacking,
A
the
pessimist.
marriage is invalid. See, so
If what is lacking?
if there's not complete freedom, and that's a
Oh,
whole
okay.
big part of the investigation in
Okay.
terms of an annulment, because consent can be impaired by previous formation, psychological problems, mental illness, you know, as I said, drugs, injuries, emotional.
Drinking before the wedding if you have
So-
time. But
And that's why it's important, as you've
Okay.
said, to go to classes and get
educated on the marriage. What
right.
marriage. I thought he was going to say this. I thought he was going to say marriage is, according to Catechism, my paraphrase of what I understood is rubbing off the rough edges of each other. And when someone takes sandpaper to your heart, it does hurt. You know, it's not like that you wake every day and your husband says, "You're so beautiful, I love you with my heart." They may not say that every day.
Mhm.
It's like they may say, you know, could you maybe take a shower? Something like that. I'm not saying we stink. I'm saying that we have to really go into it eyes wide open. Is that what the shotgun anything is? You go there eyes wide open and spend your time, if you're engaged or if you're married a long time, spend your time learning more and more about marriage and your partner. I think we have a few more points. We're going to go another 9 minutes. I always tell this is not for the audience, this is my husband to sew up his points because he comes with a sheet of paper. I come with the Holy Spirit and myself because I've been married 52 years to Deacon Pat Mongan, MD. He was first a doctor, then he was a deacon. He's got a dual, so listen to him, he's really, really smart. But in the midst of that, I want to say that we are parents of 8 children, 1 in heaven. We had 4 parents. We only had 4, 2 for me and 2 for Pat. So we look back on it, we said we didn't have great formation, but we didn't have horrible either, right? And we know that God was in the midst of our marriage because I married the man of my dreams, and my roommate, it was her cousin. It's a mystical way we got married. I dated a lot of guys, and I went down to Miami to become a display attendant, and my Peggy, like a friend from high school, came with me, and we could not get off flights. So I would go to his house for like holidays. We couldn't get off flights to go home, and then we fell in love. He came knocking on the door, and I said, I thought he was going to be here with Peggy because they were cousins, 5th removed or something, and they did have like dinners together. And I thought, well, maybe he likes Peggy. And I never thought, Pat's 7 years older than me. You can't tell, but we always think we're the same age, and that'd be 42 in our mind. We're really 72 and 78. So there's differences, but I feel like we change throughout marriage. Like first we're married and in love, and then we become parents. That's a whole new field, and then we become grandparents.
We have different stages, right?
Different stages,
and there's different learning processes that the couple have to go through in terms of maintaining that unity and dealing with those significant changes in life that occur. You know, in terms of, as you said, you know, newborns very different from teenage years and dealing with that, and then college, and then being empty nesters, and then
dual
taking
careers.
care of grandparents, and you know,
that was a lot. And then I'm a writer. I started late in life with my career because when I had 8 children that were little, when I carried the last one, I carried a full term. I didn't have the time to seek a career too. I wouldn't have gotten the work done as a woman. We embraced the work before us. The dinner dishes, the cooking the food and picking up after the children and teaching and training them. So I embraced that role, and now I embrace the writing. And so we have been through a lot of changes. And then you can say in every season, it's usually the husband, not Pat, but most husbands go like, "You're not paying any attention to me because you're all about the newborn." Well, the mom with the newborn, there's a lot to do. I was up all night for 12 years. That was a long wake-up call.
I remember what I would teach in the
What did you teach?
class. I'd say, men get involved, because especially if when number 2 child comes along, is the man, you know, he felt neglected with number 1, but get involved, like do what I did the baths, you know.
Yes, and the horsey.
I was
I'll talk about
involved,
the horsey.
you know, and then when number 2 comes along, well, guess what? Pick up the slack, you know. You got to help out a lot more in terms of taking care of number one child while mom is dealing almost exclusively with number two child.
And sometimes a mother doesn't have time to sleep or eat, and that could make you have some trials that way too. But just, you have to grow with you're on a journey of marriage, and you start the journey so much in love, holding hands and kissing. We still try to do that, and we're not doing it for a witness. We're doing it because we love each other. But then there are times when you feel, like, what are we doing? And you have to, we constantly, Pat and I do constantly brush up on marriage through reading books and tapes. We read one really good one recently about emotions, like deep hurts or wounds in your soul that cause, and we're reading one now about communication by Gary Smalley. You have to keep, it's like you're studying to be a doctor and you skip biology. You have to keep studying what is new out there, or if you're having a problem, at least with parenting, I did this too, honey.
There are good resources now that didn't used to exist.
Right, and I consider, like, two of the things we do well together in marriage, because we're getting off the subject of annulment, because I'm thinking, okay, it's about marriage, but Pat is a brilliant guy, so there's a reason someone out here, someone listening out there needs to know about that, gets to try to find the loophole. But we do two things I count, well, three. We go to daily mass, we can. I know couples do every day. That's not feasible for us because our lifestyle is a little bit more full, like Cooper full, than most people. We also pray together every morning. And lastly, we choose a date day, and we go out of town, well, not out of town, like for the day we're going to Aiken tomorrow, and just do some things together, just laugh out loud, take pictures, eat at a good restaurant, smile at each other, and say, let's not bring the cell phone along. Go ahead, Donnie, pick it up from there. I don't know what part of what I said was where you pick it up, but I trust you.
Just to kind of, as we're getting close to kind of wrapping it up, just in the fact that to give hope to people is that
That's right.
When we got married, I was an agnostic. I was not a believer.
That's right.
And in terms of getting some grace, is we can actually look at Ellen's mom, Eleanor Manfredi.
His second love after.
I hadn't, really thought about this, but the truth
There's
is
hope.
that she brought in a priest when we after our honeymoon, and are actually on our way to our honeymoon.
No, we were on the way back, but we had a month-long honeymoon.
Yeah,
and Pat was very ill, and my mom still brought the priest in.
And
Father Kunkel.
We commend you. He what called convalidation, in terms of saying, okay, yes, we're going to say this was a valid marriage, and then here I am, years later, and maybe that's what started the whole grace for me to.
It's like baptism.
Become Catholic.
It's like baptism. You're baptized as a baby, and you don't even know you have the grace, and then as you keep choosing Christ through the years, you see the grace. I want to say for my conclusion, if you want to conclude, Patrick wants to end before I do, because I'm the wordy woman.
Yes,
Put Jesus as that's not a cause for annulment, but put Jesus in the center of your marriage. Pat and I carry a little cross in the car. It was given us as some marriage thing we're at, but I have this one here, my right, I have a cross out to show me I'm doing it for Christ alone. And when something goes haywire or someone's being then you, like Pat, I get to the cross. Because you have to remember that marriage isn't a cross, but in marriage you learn to carry the cross for one another. I was struck this week about Simon. Pat already knew this, but God didn't pick someone he knew. He had 12 disciples. He had a mother. He loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. No, he finds this random dude named Simon and hands him the cross. Well, your husband is like your Simon. He has to carry the cross, for he does know you, so it makes the cross a little lighter. But picture that. Someone has to carry the cross for you. If you are in a troubled marriage and no one's carrying the cross for you, and you don't want to say a word because you're too embarrassed that you've chosen this wonderful guy and you're all in love and you're troubled, go talk to a priest. That's your avenue. Don't talk to a friend. You can talk to your parents about it. We always encourage our kids to talk to us, but everyone's going to slant something towards their way. Like, he's crazy, she's crazy. It's my favorite line when I meet people in divorce. They're not crazy. One of you is not choosing to put God as the center of your life. If God's the center of your life, he gives grace each day to make it through the day. Now, I'm going to say, I've had a lot of crosses I've carried. Some are really harder than others. But each day, Pat was Simon carrying the cross. The children. we're in a Christian community, so many Sues help me carry the cross. I want to say the Sue thing, who is Sue to you? There's someone that will help you carry that cross. But if there's abuse, that's a different story, right? There's
Right.
abuse, like
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
talking
deal
about
with
physical.
that
We'll do it
another
another time. But I'm saying it's one of those things that's different. So go talk to the priest, because that's the best avenue for you,
Or deacon.
or deacon, because deacon knows marriage, or a priest that's been married. There's some priests that have been married.
Let me add one more thing.
No, you can add a lot. It's your turn to
No,
give last
no,
words,
no,
and I'm going to
no,
add one
last
more.
word.
I'm the
No,
ending
no,
because I'm
no,
the
no.
host. He's the co-host.
This is meant to be a representation of marriage also, in that I am supposed to die for Ellen,
That's right.
like Christ died for us and for the church, and Ellen is supposed to do the same.
And then I just our song for marriage before you say is I'll stand by you. There's not a reason ever to turn on your spouse. Like Jesus had his best friend Judas turn against him.
Peter
Denied him, and to stand against you're supposed to be one in the spirit. Now this is my final word. Pat and I are writing a book called Oneness in Marriage, and we're doing this series in lieu of that as well. And in the book, I had got this title in my mind. Pat's mama, who was very much close to my heart, was having cancer surgery. And I said, Fran, you got to live, because I'm writing this book on oneness. I'm dedicated to you and Bill. So she had this surgery and stayed in the hospital. Pat went home to work, and I stayed with Bill, my father-in-law. And I met this young man, well, old man. I mean, he seemed young at the time, this old man. He was in the Lutheran church. I went with Bill to support him during this hard time. And I didn't go for communion, of course, because that's one of the things we don't hold in common. And so I spent a minute. I go, what's wrong? Are you not going to communion? He goes, well, I don't come to communion now because my wife just died. And we went to communion together. And when we went to communion together, we had oneness. And that was the name of my book, Oneness. I didn't tell it Oneness. I go, that's my title. And I thanked him. And I really did always remember that God will, first of all, call you to do something like, you shall marry this man. But confirm it. Don't just go by, he's the cutest boy in the 8th grade. Confirm it, and then know that God will bring grace on that marriage after he first calls you, and then he asks you to walk it out. The disciples didn't have that easy a time being the disciples. He trains you up, he sends you out, but along the way there may be a trial or two, a cross or two.
Most of them only got martyred, that's all.
That's right. And so then I also believe in the oneness in marriage, and that God will ask you to put the other ahead of you. It might be easy, like he likes chocolate, I like vanilla. Okay, we'll just have chocolate. But it might be hard. It might be hard, and you have to choose the other over yourself. And that grows you in virtue of self-centeredness is not of God. I don't think it is. But you meet a 2-year-old and they go, I'm in charge. But that's not true. I'm going to do whatever I want. Well, that's not true either. In marriage, you have to constantly lay down your flesh and circumcise your heart towards Christ. It's painful sometimes. But in our marriage, we have been graced with loving children and a loving spouse who's taken care of me these years. I've been a little bit more injured than others. And I thank you for marriage, Lord, and that you say this Einstein's equation. Ready? 1 and 1 equals 1. Amen. Einstein will be proud. That's my ending. You end now.
We're
traveling along, singing a song, side by side.
God bless
Hallelujah.
you.
Enjoy the sacrament.